The conference room on the 47th floor was silent, not the peaceful kind of silence. This was the kind that comes before a storm. 23 executives sat around the polished mahogany table, their faces pale, their hands trembling. On the massive screen in front of them, red numbers flashed like a warning from the universe itself. $100 million. Gone. Vanishing into thin air with every passing second. And then the doors swung open. But it wasn't another executive who walked in. It wasn't a consultant from a fancy firm. It was a 23-year-old girl in a worn-out uniform pushing a cleaning cart. Her name tag read, Maya, and what happened in the next 60 seconds would change everything. It would expose secrets that had been buried for decades. It would bring one of the most powerful men in America to his knees, and it would prove that sometimes the people we overlook are the ones holding all the answers. But before we get to that moment, we need to go back. Back to where this story truly begins. Maya Chen was born in a small, cramped apartment on the south side of Chicago. The walls were thin enough to hear every argument from the neighbors. The heating barely worked in winter. And most nights dinner was whatever her mother could stretch from the food bank donations. Her mother, Lynn, had once been a brilliant mathematician in China. She had dreams of teaching at universities, of publishing papers that would change how people understood numbers. But when she immigrated to America with her husband, those dreams slowly died. Her credentials weren't recognized. Her accent was mocked. And when Maya's father left them when Maya was only 4 years old, Lynn was forced to take whatever work she could find. She cleaned offices at night. She washed dishes at a restaurant during the day. And in between, she taught Maya everything she knew about numbers. Not from textbooks, but from life. Maya, her mother would say, sitting at their tiny kitchen table, numbers never lie. People lie. Systems lie. But numbers, they always tell the truth. You just have to know how to listen to them. And Maya listened. Oh, how she listened. While other kids played video games, Maya would sit with her mother, solving equations on the backs of receipts. While other teenagers went to parties, Maya was working through advanced calculus problems her mother had written out on napkins. She had a gift, a rare, extraordinary gift for seeing patterns that others missed, for understanding systems that seemed impossibly complex. But gifts don't pay rent. And by the time Maya was 16, her mother's health began to fail. The years of working multiple jobs, of never resting, of skipping meals so Maya could eat, had taken their toll. Lynn developed a heart condition that required expensive medication they couldn't afford. Maya dropped out of school, not because she wanted to, not because she wasn't smart enough, but because her mother needed her, because someone had to work, because sometimes life doesn't care about your potential. She took a job at a fast food restaurant, then another at a grocery store, and when those weren't enough, she started cleaning offices at night, just like her mother had done. She was 17 years old, working 60 hours a week, watching her dreams of college fade like morning fog. But she never stopped learning. On her breaks, she would read discarded business magazines from the offices she cleaned. She would study the charts and graphs, the financial reports that executives left behind. And slowly, secretly, she began to understand the world of business in a way that no textbook could ever teach. Years passed. Maya's mother passed away when Maya was 21. It happened on a cold February morning. Lynn had been getting weaker for months, but Maya had convinced herself that things would get better. That if she just worked harder, earned more money, found better doctors, everything would be okay. But life doesn't work that way. Maya held her mother's hand in that hospital room, surrounded by beeping machines and the smell of antiseptic. And as Lynn took her final breaths, she looked at her daughter with eyes full of love and whispered her last words. Don't let them make you invisible, Maya. You are extraordinary. Promise me you'll remember that. Maya promised. But in the months that followed, That promise felt impossible to keep. With her mother gone, Maya was truly alone. She had no family in America, no safety net, no one to turn to when the grief became too heavy to carry. She threw herself into work, taking on extra shifts, saving every penny she could, not for herself, but for something else. Something her mother had always wanted for her. She started taking online classes. Late at night, after her cleaning shifts were over, Maya would sit in her small apartment and study accounting, finance, business management. She couldn't afford a real university, but she could learn, she could prepare, and maybe someday she could find a way out. It was during one of these late-night study sessions that Maya saw the job posting. Henderson Technologies, one of the largest tech companies in the country, was hiring cleaning staff for their headquarters. The pay was better than what she was making, the hours were stable, and something about the company's name stuck with her. She applied, she got the job. And at 23 years old, Maya Chen walked through the gleaming glass doors of Henderson Technologies for the first time. The building was nothing like the offices she had cleaned before. It was a monument to success. 50 floors of steel and glass, rising into the Chicago skyline like a middle finger to everyone who had ever doubted what technology could achieve. The lobby alone was bigger than the apartment Maya had grown up in, and everywhere she looked, there were people in expensive suits carrying laptops worth more than her entire year's salary. Maya was invisible to them, just another cleaning lady in a blue uniform, someone to walk past without making eye contact, someone whose name they would never bother to learn. Her supervisor was a tired woman named Dorothy, who had been working at Henderson for 15 years. Dorothy showed Maya the ropes, which floors to clean, which executives were rude, and which ones were kind enough to say, "Thank you," which bathrooms got the dirtiest. "Just keep your head down," Dorothy advised on Maya's first day. "Do your job, don't cause trouble, and whatever you do, don't go to the 47th floor unless you're specifically asked. That's where the big bosses are. They don't like surprises." Maya nodded. She wasn't looking for trouble. She just wanted to do her job, earn her paycheck, and maybe, someday, save enough to go back to school properly. But life, as Maya had learned too many times, had other plans. The first few months at Henderson Technologies passed without incident. Maya cleaned, she mopped, she emptied trash cans and restocked paper towels. And at night she continued her online studies, slowly working her way through accounting courses that most people took in college. She noticed things, though, things that other cleaning staff probably missed. She noticed how certain executives would have heated conversations in conference rooms late at night, then quickly change the subject when she walked in to empty the trash. She noticed how the financial reports left on desks seemed to have numbers that didn't quite add up. She noticed patterns, inconsistencies, things that made the mathematician in her uncomfortable. But she stayed quiet. She remembered Dorothy's advice. Keep your head down, don't cause trouble. Until the night she couldn't stay quiet anymore. It happened 3 months into her job at Henderson. Maya was cleaning the 34th floor, the finance department, when she heard raised voices coming from one of the corner offices. She tried to ignore it, focusing on her work, but the voices got louder and louder. "The numbers don't work," a woman's voice shouted. "I've been over them 100 times. There's a discrepancy of nearly $2 million, and I can't find where it's coming from." "Then you're not looking hard enough," a man's voice snapped back. "These reports go to the board tomorrow morning. If there's a mistake, it's your job to fix it. I don't care if you have to stay here all night." Bart. Maya heard footsteps, and suddenly the door swung open. A young woman with red-rimmed eyes rushed past her without even seeing her. The woman was clearly on the verge of tears, clutching a stack of papers to her chest. Something made Maya follow her. Call it instinct. Call it her mother's voice in her head, telling her that numbers never lie. Whatever it was, Maya found herself walking toward the break room where the young woman had disappeared. The woman was sitting at a table, her head in her hands, papers spread out in front of her. She was an analyst, Maya guessed. Young, probably not much older than Maya herself, but in a completely different world. A world of spreadsheets and presentations and expectations that could crush a person. "Excuse me," Maya said softly. The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes were red, and there were tears on her cheeks. "What?" "I don't need the trash emptied. Just leave me alone." Maya hesitated. Every instinct told her to walk away, to keep her head down, to not cause trouble. But then she thought of her mother, of all the times Lynn had been dismissed, overlooked, treated like she was nothing, and she couldn't walk away. "I'm sorry," Maya said. I couldn't help overhearing. You said there's a discrepancy in the numbers?" The woman let out a bitter laugh. "Yes, a $2 million discrepancy that I have until tomorrow morning to find. But I don't expect you to understand." The words stung, but Maya had been stung by worse. "Can I see?" she asked. The woman stared at her like she had grown a second head. "Can you—" "What?" "Can I see the numbers? Maybe I can help." There was a long pause. The woman looked at Maya's cleaning uniform, at the mop she was holding, at everything about her that screamed, "Nobody." And for a moment Maya was sure she would be laughed out of the room. But instead the woman shrugged. "Sure. Why not? I've tried everything else." She pushed the papers toward Maya, clearly expecting nothing. Maya set down her mop. She sat across from the woman and picked up the first report. Her eyes scanned the columns of numbers, the formulas, the references to other documents, and within 30 seconds she saw it. "There," Maya said, pointing to a cell in the middle of the spreadsheet. "The formula is referencing the wrong column. It's pulling data from Q3 of last year instead of Q3 of this year. That's why you're getting the discrepancy." The woman's mouth fell open. She grabbed the paper, looked at where Maya was pointing, and then looked back at Maya with an expression of complete disbelief. "How did you—" she stammered. Maya shrugged. "Numbers never lie. You just have to know how to listen to them." The woman spent the next 10 minutes verifying Maya's finding. And when she was done, she sat back in her chair, shaking her head in amazement. "You just saved my job," she said. "I've been staring at these numbers for 6 hours, and you've figured it out in 30 seconds. Who are you?" "I'm Maya," Maya said simply. "I clean the 34th floor." That night the analyst, whose name was Rachel, thanked Maya profusely. She offered to buy her dinner, to tell her supervisor what had happened, to do something to repay her. But Maya refused. "Just forget about it," she said. "I was glad to help." But Rachel didn't forget. In fact, Rachel talked. She told her colleagues about the cleaning lady who had solved her problem in 30 seconds. And slowly, quietly, word began to spread through the lower floors of Henderson Technologies. Over the next few months, Maya found herself being approached by more and more people. An accountant who couldn't reconcile his books, a project manager whose timeline calculations were off, a junior analyst who was struggling with a presentation. Each time, Maya would look at their numbers, find the problem, and quietly walk away without asking for anything in return. She didn't want recognition. She didn't want trouble. She just couldn't help herself. Numbers called to her. Problems needed to be solved. And helping people, even people who barely saw her as human, made her feel connected to something bigger than herself. But not everyone was grateful. There were whispers. Some people resented the cleaning lady who seemed to know more than she should. Some people saw Maya as a threat, even though she had no power, no position, no voice in the company. And some people began to wonder how much Maya really knew. One of those people was Vincent Cross. Vincent was the chief financial officer of Henderson Technologies. He was a tall, handsome man in his 50s, with silver hair and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He had been with the company for 20 years, working his way up from a junior accountant to one of the most powerful executives in the building. And he had secrets that were buried deep in the company's financial records, secrets worth millions of dollars. When Vincent first heard about the cleaning lady who could solve complex financial problems in seconds, he laughed it off. But as the stories continued, as more and more people whispered about Maya's strange gift, Vincent began to worry. What if she looked at the wrong numbers? What if she saw something she wasn't supposed to see? Vincent started paying attention to Maya. He watched her on the security cameras. He noted which floors she cleaned, which offices she entered, which trash cans she emptied. And he began to formulate a plan. But before Vincent could act, something much bigger happened. Something that would change everything. It started on a Tuesday morning in the office of Robert Henderson himself. Robert Henderson was the founder and CEO of Henderson Technologies. He was 72 years old, a legend in the tech industry, a man who had built his company from nothing into a multi-billion-dollar empire. His face was on magazine covers. His name was spoken with reverence, and his word was law within the walls of his company. But Robert was tired. He had been running the company for over 40 years, and the weight of it was beginning to show. His health was failing, his energy was fading, and he knew that soon he would have to step back and let others take the reins. That Tuesday morning, Robert was meeting with his executive team to discuss the company's quarterly numbers. Vincent Cross was there, along with the heads of every major department. And the news was not good. "We have a problem," Vincent said, pulling up a presentation on the large screen. "A significant problem?" The room fell silent as red numbers appeared on the screen. Henderson Technologies was losing money, a lot of money. Contracts were falling through, clients were leaving, and the company's stock price had dropped by 20% in the last month alone. "We've traced the issue to a flaw in our new software platform," Vincent continued. "The system we launched 6 months ago has a critical bug. It's causing data losses for our clients, and the lawsuits are starting to pile up." Robert's face was grim. "How bad is it?" "If we don't fix this in the next 48 hours, we're looking at losses of over $100 million. Our biggest client, the one that accounts for 30% of our revenue, has already threatened to terminate their contract. If they go, others will follow. This could destroy the company." The room erupted in chaos. Executives shouted over each other. Blame was thrown like knives. And in the middle of it all, Robert sat quietly, his face growing paler by the minute. "Enough," he finally said, and his voice, though soft, cut through the noise like a blade. "We need solutions, not excuses. Vincent, have you brought in our best engineers?" "Yes," Vincent said. "Our entire tech team has been working on this for 3 days. They can't find the source of the bug. It's buried somewhere in thousands of lines of code, and every time they think they've found it, it moves. It's like chasing a ghost." "What about external consultants?" "We've contacted 4 different firms. The earliest anyone can get here is next week. By then, it will be too late." Robert closed his eyes. In that moment, he looked like a man watching his life's work crumble to dust. And that's when the doors swung open. Maya didn't know why she was on the 47th floor that night. She had been sent there by Dorothy, who was home sick with the flu. "Just empty the trash and get out," Dorothy had said. "Don't talk to anyone, don't touch anything, just clean and leave." But when Maya stepped off the elevator, she could feel that something was wrong. The air was thick with tension. The few people she passed looked terrified, like they were watching a building burn. And as she pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway, she heard voices coming from the main conference room. Normally, Maya would have walked right past. Normally, she would have kept her head down and done her job. But something made her stop. Something made her pause outside the door, which was slightly ajar. And then she heard it. "The system is hemorrhaging money," someone was saying. "The algorithm is pulling from the wrong data sources, and it's compounding the errors across every client account. If we don't isolate the source, we'll lose everything." Maya's heart began to beat faster. Wrong data sources, compounding errors. These were words she understood. These were problems she had solved before. Before she could stop herself, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. 23 pairs of eyes turned to stare at her. 23 executives in their $1,000 suits, looking at a cleaning lady in her worn uniform like she was an alien who had just landed on their planet. "Who are you?" Vincent Cross demanded, his voice cold with contempt. "This is a private meeting. Get out." Maya's face flushed. Every instinct screamed at her to apologize, to back away, to disappear into the shadows where she belonged. But then she looked at the screen, at the red numbers, at the code that was displayed in one corner of the presentation, and she saw it. "The algorithm is wrong," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "You're using a nested loop in the data verification process, but it's recursively calling the same function without a proper exit condition. That's why the errors are compounding. Every time it runs, it multiplies the mistakes instead of catching them." The room went completely silent. Vincent's face twisted with rage. "How dare you! Security, get this woman out of here immediately!" But Robert Henderson held up his hand. His eyes were fixed on Maya with an intensity that made her want to look away. "Wait," he said. "Let her finish." Maya swallowed hard. "The fix is simple. You need to add a base case to the recursive function, something that checks if the data has already been verified before running the loop again. Without it, the system keeps checking the same data over and over, and any initial error gets duplicated exponentially." Robert turned to his lead engineer, a nervous man in the corner who had been silent throughout the meeting. "Is she right?" The engineer stared at Maya, his face a mixture of disbelief and embarrassment. He pulled out his laptop, typed furiously for a moment, and then went very, very still. "She's right," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's completely right. The bug is in the recursive function. I can't believe we missed it. It was right there the whole time." The room exploded into motion. The engineer rushed to his laptop to implement the fix. Other executives began making calls, issuing orders, mobilizing teams. But Robert Henderson didn't move. He just sat there, looking at Maya with an expression she couldn't read. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Maya," she said. "Maya Chen. I clean this floor." Robert was quiet for a long moment. And then, for the first time in what felt like hours, he smiled. "Maya Chen," he repeated. "I think you and I need to have a conversation." What happened next would become legend at Henderson Technologies. The story of the cleaning lady who walked into a crisis meeting and saved the company from disaster. It spread through the building like wildfire, growing bigger with each retelling. Some versions said Maya had solved the problem in 10 seconds. Others said she had discovered a massive fraud. The truth was dramatic enough, but truth rarely gets in the way of a good story. But the real story, the one that no one knew yet, was only beginning. Robert Henderson asked Maya to stay after the meeting. As the other executives filed out, shooting her looks that ranged from amazement to outright hostility, Robert gestured for her to sit down across from him. "You just saved this company $100 million, he said. "At least? How did you do that?" Maya shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I saw the pattern. Numbers tell stories. I've always been able to read them." "Where did you learn that?" "From my mother. She was a mathematician. She taught me everything I know." Robert nodded slowly. "And you work as a cleaning lady because—" Maya's jaw tightened. "Because that's the only job I could get. I dropped out of school to take care of my mother when she got sick. I couldn't afford college. I couldn't afford anything, so I clean, I work, I survive." There was no self-pity in her voice, just facts. Just the cold, hard reality of a life that had never given her a fair chance. Robert was silent for a long time. He steepled his fingers under his chin, and his eyes never left Maya's face. She felt like he was looking through her, seeing things she had tried to keep hidden. "Maya," he finally said, "I'm going to tell you something. And I need you to listen carefully." He paused, as if gathering his thoughts. "I started this company 43 years ago. I was nobody. Just a kid from the wrong side of town with big ideas and no money. Everyone told me I would fail. Everyone said I didn't have the right background, the right education, the right connections. But I didn't listen to them. I built this company from nothing, and I turned it into something extraordinary." He leaned forward and his voice grew softer. "But I've made mistakes along the way, terrible mistakes. And one of those mistakes has haunted me for 23 years. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know why, but suddenly she had the feeling that this conversation was about to change her life. 23 years ago, Robert continued, I was married to a wonderful woman named Elizabeth. We were happy. We had everything. And then she got pregnant. We were going to have a daughter. His voice cracked slightly. But something went wrong. Elizabeth had complications during the birth. The doctors did everything they could, but she didn't make it. She died giving birth to our daughter. Maya's heart ached for him. She knew what it was like to lose someone you loved. I'm so sorry, she said softly. Robert shook his head. That's not the end of the story. Our daughter survived, a beautiful baby girl, and I couldn't look at her. Every time I saw her face, I saw Elizabeth. I saw the wife I had lost. And I was drowning in grief, in pain, in anger. I wasn't fit to be a father. I wasn't fit to be anything. Why? He took a deep breath. So I made a decision, a terrible decision. I gave her up. I arranged for her to be adopted by a family who could give her a normal life. A life away from the spotlight, away from the pressure, away from me. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was giving her a chance. Maya was frozen. Something was stirring in the back of her mind, a memory she couldn't quite grasp. I never stopped thinking about her, Robert said. I hired people to check on her to make sure she was okay. I watched from a distance as she grew up, and when her adoptive mother, a brilliant mathematician from China, passed away 2 years ago, I knew it was time. Maya's heart stopped. The family that adopted you was paid to give you the best life possible, Robert said, his eyes glistening with tears. Your mother, Lynn, was the most loving, dedicated woman I could find. She wasn't related to you by blood, but she loved you like you were her own, and I loved her for that. No, Maya whispered. No, that's not possible. I've known who you were since the day you started working here, Robert said. I've been watching you, waiting for the right moment, trying to figure out how to tell you the truth. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a faded photograph. It showed a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes holding a newborn baby wrapped in a pink blanket. That's Elizabeth, Robert said, and that's you. Maya stared at the photograph, her mind reeling. The woman in the picture looked like her, the same eyes, the same shape of the face. It was like looking at a mirror that reflected a different time. I don't understand, she said, her voice breaking. Why? Why did you give me away? Why did you let me struggle all these years while you sat up here in your tower? Because I was a coward, Robert said simply. Because I was broken. Because I thought you deserved better than a father who couldn't even look at his own child without falling apart. I was wrong. I know that now. I was so incredibly wrong. He stood up slowly and walked around the table to where Maya was sitting. And then, for the first time in 23 years, Robert Henderson looked into his daughter's eyes without looking away. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said. I know I can't make up for all the years you spent alone, but I want to try. I want to be part of your life, if you'll let me. I want to give you everything I should have given you from the beginning. Maya didn't know what to say. Her whole world had just been turned upside down. The father she had never known, the life she had never lived, the answers to questions she had stopped asking years ago. But before she could respond, the conference room doors burst open once again. Vincent Cross stood in the doorway, his face twisted with rage. Behind him were 2 security guards and a woman Maya had never seen before, holding a briefcase. This is unacceptable, Vincent snarled. Robert, you can't seriously be considering this. This woman is a nobody. A cleaning lady. She doesn't belong here. Robert's expression hardened. Vincent, this is a private matter. I suggest you leave. But Vincent didn't leave. Instead, he strode into the room, his eyes blazing with barely contained fury. A private matter? You're about to hand over your legacy to some stranger who wandered in off the street. Have you lost your mind?" "She's not a stranger," Robert said quietly. "She's my daughter." Vincent froze. For a moment his mask slipped, and Maya saw something dark and desperate in his eyes. Something that looked a lot like fear. "Your daughter died," Vincent said, his voice strained. "That's what you told everyone. That's what the records say." "The records were falsified. At my request, to protect her." Vincent's composure cracked completely. "You can't do this. You can't just bring in some outsider and expect everyone to accept it. The board will never approve. The shareholders will never accept it. This is madness." But Robert wasn't backing down. In fact, he seemed to grow stronger with every word Vincent spoke. "This is my company, Vincent. I built it. I decide who inherits it, and I've made my decision." "Then you've made a mistake." Vincent snapped his fingers, and the woman with the briefcase stepped forward. "This is my attorney, Robert, and she has some very interesting documents. Documents that prove your precious daughter isn't who she claims to be. Documents that show she's been stealing from this company for months." Maya's heart dropped. "What? I've never stolen anything in my life." But Vincent was already pulling papers from the briefcase, spreading them across the table. Bank statements, transfer records, her name attached to accounts she had never seen. "You've been siphoning money through the cleaning service contracts," Vincent said triumphantly. "Inflating invoices, pocketing the difference. It's all here. Hundreds of thousands of dollars missing from the books." Robert's face went pale. He looked at the documents, then at Maya, and for a terrible moment she saw doubt flicker in his eyes. "This isn't true," Maya said, her voice shaking. "I would never do this. Someone set me up." "How convenient," Vincent sneered. "The poor little cleaning girl, always the victim. But the numbers don't lie, do they? You taught us that." Maya felt like the floor was falling away beneath her. Everything she had worked for, everything she had just discovered, was crumbling in front of her eyes. Vincent had won. He had found a way to destroy her before she even had a chance. But then she stopped. She looked at the documents again, and she remembered what her mother had always told her. Numbers never lie. People lie, but numbers always tell the truth. "Give me those papers," Maya said, her voice suddenly steady. Vincent laughed. "So you can destroy the evidence?" "So I can show you who really stole the money." There was a moment of tense silence. Then Robert nodded. "Let her look." Maya took the papers. Her eyes scanned the columns, the dates, the account numbers, and within minutes she saw what Vincent had tried so hard to hide. "These documents are forgeries," she said. "Good ones, but forgeries nonetheless. Look at the timestamps on the transactions. They reference account numbers that didn't exist until 2 weeks ago. And the signatures on the transfer authorizations? They're using a font that was only added to our system last month. But the transfers supposedly happened 6 months ago." Vincent's face went white. "Someone created these documents recently and backdated them," Maya continued. "Someone who had access to the company's financial systems, someone who knew exactly how to manipulate the records." She looked up at Vincent, and for the first time, she wasn't afraid of him. "Someone like the chief financial officer." The room erupted. The attorney began backing toward the door. The security guards looked at each other in confusion, and Vincent Cross stood frozen, caught in the web of his own lies. "Vincent," Robert said, his voice like ice, "I think you have some explaining to do." What followed was the unraveling of a scheme that had been building for years. Vincent Cross, it turned out, had been embezzling money from Henderson Technologies for nearly a decade. Millions of dollars hidden in offshore accounts, disguised through complex transactions that no one had ever thought to question. But Vincent had gotten greedy. When he heard about Maya's ability to spot financial discrepancies, he realized she was a threat. And when he learned that Robert was planning to recognize her as his daughter, he knew he had to act fast. The forged documents were a desperate attempt to discredit her before she could expose his crimes. He had almost succeeded. Within hours, Vincent was escorted from the building in handcuffs. his career and his freedom destroyed by the same numbers he had tried to use against Maya. The board of directors convened an emergency meeting. Auditors were brought in, and the full extent of Vincent's betrayal was revealed. He had stolen over $30 million from the company. But this story isn't about Vincent Cross. It's about what happened after. In the weeks that followed, Maya's life transformed in ways she never could have imagined. Robert announced publicly that she was his daughter, the heir he had been searching for his entire life. The media went into a frenzy. Headlines screamed about the cleaning lady who became a princess overnight. Talk shows begged for interviews. Book publishers offered million-dollar deals. But Maya didn't care about any of that. What she cared about was the moment Robert took her to a small cemetery on the outskirts of Chicago, to a headstone she had visited 1,000 times before. Lin Chen, beloved mother, forever remembered. "I paid for her medical care," Robert said softly, standing beside Maya in front of the grave. "I made sure she had the best doctors, the best treatments, but in the end, it wasn't enough." Maya looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "You knew her?" "I chose her," Robert said. "When I was looking for someone to adopt you, I searched for months, and then I found Lin, a brilliant mathematician who had come to this country with nothing, a woman who had been through hardship and come out stronger, a woman who would love you the way Elizabeth would have loved you." Maya knelt down and placed her hand on the cold stone. "She never told me. She promised she wouldn't. It was part of our agreement. She wanted you to have a normal life, free from the burden of who you really were. But she loved you, Maya. That was never an act. That was never part of any agreement. She loved you more than anything in this world." Maya closed her eyes, and in that moment she felt her mother's presence. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as something eternal, something that would never leave her. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." Robert stood silently beside her, giving her the space to grieve and to heal. And when she finally stood up, he took her hand and said the words he should have said 23 years ago. "Welcome home, Maya. Welcome home." 1 year later, Maya stood at the podium of Henderson Technologies' annual shareholders meeting. She was no longer wearing a cleaning uniform. She was wearing a custom-tailored suit, her hair professionally styled, her confidence radiating from every pore. But she hadn't forgotten where she came from, and she never would. "Thank you all for being here today," she said, looking out at the crowd of investors, executives, and journalists. "As you know, my father, Robert Henderson, has officially stepped back from his role as CEO, and I am honored and humbled to take his place." There was a murmur in the crowd, some supportive, some skeptical. Maya didn't care. "I know there are those who doubt me," she continued, "who wonder if I have what it takes. After all, a year ago I was cleaning the floors you walked on. I was invisible. I was nobody." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But here's what I've learned. The measure of a person isn't where they start. It's how far they're willing to go. My mother, the woman who raised me, taught me that numbers never lie. But she also taught me something else. She taught me that the people who are overlooked, the people who are underestimated, the people who struggle in silence, they are often the ones who see the world most clearly." Maya's voice grew stronger. "I'm not here because I was born into privilege. I'm here because I worked, I learned, I fought, and I refused to let anyone make me invisible. That's the spirit I want to bring to this company. Not just profits and growth, but opportunity. A chance for everyone to be seen. A chance for everyone to be heard." The crowd erupted in applause, not polite, reserved applause, but genuine, thunderous approval. And as Maya looked out at the faces before her, she saw something she had never expected to see: hope. After the meeting, Robert found Maya in her new office on the 47th floor, the same floor where, just a year ago, she had been forbidden to enter. Now she had a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "You did well today," Robert said, sitting across from her. His health had continued to decline, but his eyes were bright with pride. Your mother would be proud. Both of them, Maya said softly. Elizabeth and Lynn. I carry them both with me. Robert nodded. That's as it should be. Family isn't just about blood, it's about love. It's about the people who shape us into who we are. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I have something for you, something I should have given you a long time ago. Maya opened the box. Inside was a necklace with a simple pendant, a circle of gold with a single diamond in the center. It was Elizabeth's, Robert said. Her mother gave it to her on her wedding day, and she always said she would give it to her daughter someday. Maya held the necklace in her hands, feeling the weight of it, the history, the love. Thank you, Dad. It was the first time she had called him that. And for a moment, Robert Henderson, the legendary CEO who had built an empire from nothing, couldn't speak through his tears. 5 years later, Henderson Technologies was named one of the best companies to work for in America. Under Maya's leadership, the company had transformed, not just in terms of profits, which had doubled, but in terms of culture. Maya had implemented programs to support working mothers, to provide educational opportunities for low-income employees, to create pathways for people who had been overlooked by the traditional system. The cleaning staff no longer ate lunch alone in the basement. They had seats in the main cafeteria, they had access to career development programs, they had a voice. And every year, on the anniversary of the day Maya walked into that conference room and changed everything, she hosted a special event, a celebration of the underdogs, the overlooked, the invisible. At the most recent event, Maya stood on stage and shared her story one more time. The story of a poor girl who fixed a $100 million problem in seconds. The story of a CEO who had the courage to recognize his mistakes. The story of a mother who loved her daughter enough to let her go. I want to leave you with one thought, Maya said, looking out at the crowd. Every single person in this room has the power to change the world. Not because of where you were born, not because of who your parents were, but because of who you choose to become. My mother taught me that numbers never lie. But I've learned something even more important. Neither does love. She paused, and her eyes found a young woman in the crowd. A cleaning lady, just like Maya had once been, wearing a worn uniform and looking at the stage with wonder. To all the Mayas out there, Maya said, her voice thick with emotion, the ones who are cleaning floors tonight while dreaming of something more, don't give up. Don't ever give up. Your moment is coming, and when it does, the whole world is going to be stunned by what you do next. The crowd rose to their feet. The applause was deafening. And as Maya walked off the stage, she felt her mother's presence beside her one last time. You did it, my daughter, Lynn's voice seemed to whisper. You became extraordinary. And she had. Not because of her father's money or her mother's lessons, but because she had the courage to believe that she was worth more than the uniform she wore, that her voice deserved to be heard, that her story deserved to be told. This is the story of Maya Chen, the poor girl who fixed a $100 million problem in seconds, the cleaning lady who became a CEO, the daughter who was lost and then found again. But more than that, it's a story for everyone who has ever felt invisible, everyone who has ever been told they weren't good enough, everyone who has ever looked up at the stars and wondered if they would ever get their chance to shine. Your chance is coming, and when it does, make sure the world is watching. Because what you do next might just stun everyone. And if you're still watching, if this story touched your heart, I want you to remember one thing. The people we overlook today might be the heroes of tomorrow. So be kind, be patient, be open to seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. Because you never know when a poor girl with a cleaning cart might walk through the door and change everything.